Welcome to Screams from the Center, where I hope to provide information on topics I find interesting and give my take on them. On today's episode, show us the birth certificate. Trump for Walker? Trump doxes Senator Graham. McCain no hero to Donald Trump? And Senator Graham responds. You guessed it, it's a Donald Trump episode of Screams from the Center. Stay tuned, and thank you. Republican candidate for president Donald Trump has refused to release his birth certificate, his passport records, and his college transcripts. This is the same guy who, in 2012, when he was considering running for president, called on the sitting president of the United States to release his real birth certificate, his passport, and college transcripts. He also wanted the minority identification forms that Obama used to get into college. Now, Donald Trump has said things along the lines of the reason he doesn't release his is that it's none of anybody's business. But apparently, if you are the sitting president, well, what is it that makes Obama different than Donald Trump? I wonder. So, Screams from the Center is calling for Donald Trump to produce his birth certificate, passport records, and his college transcripts. Also, we're requesting that he provide enough tax returns to show that he's paying his fair share of taxes. Or, in the case of most conservatives, just to prove to us that he pays way too much in taxes. Otherwise, I think we are safe to say that Donald Trump would be a hypocrite. This is the man who, back in 2012, hired a team of investigators to fly off to Hawaii and uncover the secrets about Obama's birth certificate. And he had something on him. He said it several times. He had something amazing to show us. Yet, we don't know what that is. He never released it. So, again, Donald, prove to us that you are born of two human parents with a birth certificate. Show us passport records so that we can make sure that you didn't have illicit ties to our enemy nations, because we wouldn't want a president who gives aid and comfort to our enemies. And we want your college transcripts so that we know you're not an idiot. This should be a simple enough request. I mean, you're the great Donald Trump, right? So, I think if Donald refuses to show any of these documents, we can safely call him a hypocrite. Thank you. I have a theory about Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. We've seen him a lot in the news, and we're bound to see him for at least a little while until he drops out, which he will do. But one of the things that's concerned me is the types of criticism that he lays out. Now, of course, he's quick to condemn any Democrat. I mean, that's to be expected. You're a member of the Republican Party. You go after Democrats. What's odd is the way that he's going after his fellow Republicans. Or who he's not going after. To this date, I have not seen any criticism that Donald Trump has had against other Republican candidate Scott Walker, governor of Wisconsin. I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, his candidacy has been recently announced, but that hasn't stopped him from going after other potential Republican candidates who have not thrown into the race yet. So it leads me to wonder, Donald Trump is a billionaire. He's part of that billionaire crowd, the billionaire club, the good old boy network, whatever you want to call it. It's a tight-knit group. They all know each other. It seems to me that someone who probably gets along with, or at least knows pretty closely, the Koch brothers, would discuss with them ways of promoting their favorite candidate. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that the Koch brothers, who have raised and raising upwards of $1 billion themselves, which is more than Republicans or Democrats in the party, it's not hard to see that whoever they pick as their candidate is going to have a lot of financial backing behind them. So far, the safe money is that Scott Walker is the Koch brothers' candidate. We all know that Scott Walker was caught up in that fake phone call where he thought he was talking to one of the Kochs, and he was awfully polite and egregious to their needs, as we all laughed at him. We also know that he implements a lot of policies that the Koch brothers would love to see. The Koch brothers would love to see unions go away. They would love to see pipelines carrying their tar sands oil from Canada. So it's not hard to see that someone like Scott Walker is their man. Scott Walker recently put together a pipeline that would carry this tar sands oil. He also supported a bill that is working its way through the legislature right now that would create a volunteer basis for a 7-day work week. Now, of course, there's no protections in that from your employer coming up to you off the record and saying, we need you to work 7 days a week, or we have to find someone who can. There's no provisions preventing something like that from happening. So it's a de facto elimination of days off. He refuses to raise the minimum wage, another very strong topic that the Koch brothers like. They want to see the minimum wage eliminated, and he's doing everything he can to do that. His campaign against unions is very much in the Koch brothers' interest as well. So if Donald Trump is part of the little club that they all occupy, the billionaires, how hard is it to think that his candidacy may not be all it's cracked up to be? What's to stop Charles and David Koch from going up to Trump and saying, we need you to do a favor? Although, with Trump's ego, it's probably more like, hey, I can do you guys a favor. I'm going to run for president. I'm going to bash every Democrat. I'm going to bash every Republican that you don't like. I'm going to take out Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush is the biggest threat to your interest. I'll take him out. So Donald Trump declares his candidacy for president. Now, it may seem a little far-fetched. Donald Trump doesn't play well with others, and he's egotistical enough to think that he actually has a shot at the presidency. But I believe the theory that Donald Trump is a spoiler for Scott Walker. That his candidacy is there to put down every other candidacy, while he never talks about Scott Walker or says anything bad about Scott Walker. Now, we'll see how this develops as things go on, and I may have to retract a heartfelt apology at assuming the wrong thing. But as it stands right now, when I put this in my broadcast, I'm willing to bet he hasn't said anything bad towards Scott Walker. I mean, he's called Jeb Bush a fool. He's called Marco Rubio weak. He's called a lot of Republican candidates rather bad names. He says that he is the best out of all of them. Of course, that was an interview with Sean Hannity before Scott Walker joined. Let's see how he keeps up this now that Scott Walker's officially in. I have my suspicions. Thank you. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump on Tuesday at a rally in South Carolina, speaking in front of hundreds of people, gave out the phone number of South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. This is his private cell phone number. Trump and Graham have engaged in an ongoing feud in the past few days as they battle for the Republican nomination. In Trump's speech on Tuesday, he called Graham an idiot, for example, after Graham called him a jackass in another interview. Trump gave out the number and urged his attendees to give it a call. He said, give it a shot. So what is interesting is this actually did work. It went to voicemail, and then there was a text message to Graham using the number that was not returned. So we're left here with the idea that Donald Trump engaged in an internet technique called doxing, whereas you give out personal information of someone, usually someone of some notoriety, fame, or infamy, in an effort to harass them. This is similar to the idea of when a girl and a guy get together, they take pictures of each other nude, and later on the guy breaks up with the girl and posts her pictures up. I believe they call it revenge porn, or, a sex tape or something like that. This is a limited version of that sort of thing, but it's a common internet trick done by trolls. And this is a Republican candidate for President of the United States who's resorting to this kind of a tactic. Lindsey Graham has put out on his Twitter stream that he is probably getting a new phone, iPhone or Android, ? I find that a little amusing. My suggestion to Senator Graham, if I may get off topic just a little bit, is that he get a Motorola Razr circa 2006, because the senator himself has said that he doesn't do email. So I wonder if he does anything else, including this humorous Twitter posting. He'd probably do better with just a Motorola Razr phone. And I'm sure you could find some of them. Otherwise, I'd recommend staying away from the smartphones. But, back to Donald Trump, how desperate and vile do you need to be to resort to a tactic like this? He's giving out personal information of his opponents because he was a donor before he decided to run for president. How low is that? And if that weren't the worst of the news, Donald Trump leads the Republican nomination national poll by over 10 points. What is wrong with the Republican Party? What happened to your Eisenhowers, your Goldwaters? I may not have philosophically agreed with everything that Nixon said or did, or George Bush Sr., but these people tended to run cleaner campaigns. Eisenhower ran on strong unions and Social Security. What happened to this party? So, there we have it. Donald Trump, leading contender for the Republican nomination to President of the United States. Celebrity businessman and reality television star Donald Trump, who is also, by the way, running for the Republican nomination, commented on John McCain as not being a war hero. He said he's not a war hero. He's a war hero because he was captured. And Donald doesn't like people that were captured. This was done at a Family Leadership Summit. It was a gathering of about 3,000 social conservatives and activists, and this has caused quite a bit of an outrage amongst the conservative and naturally the liberal side of the coin. Rick Perry, perennial candidate who is trying to get attention, said that Trump was unfit for service and should immediately withdraw from the race. Special reminder, Fox News is holding a presidential debate, and they are only taking the top 10 candidates in the national polls. Guess where Rick Perry is? So, of course, he's weighing in. Now, this is no shock to me. I am and will be speaking out about how the Republicans, in all honesty, really don't respect veterans. They respect soldiers who are in the war, but when you come home, fuck you. Republicans habitually say no to legislation designed to help benefits when they return from wars. But I don't want to get too far into that topic. Again, McCain took the high road in this and chose pretty much not to comment on it. Of course, he's not really running for president, so, he's not going to do that. But you have to think to yourself about what kind of respect that your president is going to have for you when you're a soldier returning from war, or a soldier who had the unfortunate circumstance of being captured in a war. And to find out that Donald Trump really doesn't respect you because you got captured. Now, a little fact about John McCain: he was able to come home early. His father was very prominent, and the Vietnamese wanted to court some favor by releasing him. John McCain refused to leave unless all of his fellow prisoners left with him. So he spent 5 years in a tiger cage, suffering with his men. Now, whether you think John McCain is a good senator, a good politician, or was a good candidate for president is irrelevant. Whether you think that getting captured is a dishonorable act is irrelevant. McCain was able to leave, and he chose to stay with his men. That, to me, is more honor in his pinky than Donald Trump has ever expressed in his college deferments and medical deferments from Vietnam. Donald Trump is an insult to anyone who wore the uniform. I have no respect for a man who's going to do something like that. Just as I had no respect for the people who disparaged Senator Kerry when he ran for president. Never would I have made a comment about John McCain's service like that. Donald Trump should be ashamed of himself. And since I'm not running for the Republican nomination, no, not yet, I agree with Rick Perry. He is unfit for command. He is unfit to be the President of the United States. He should withdraw from the race and from public life in a disgrace. Go back to your casinos and golf courses, asshole. Lindsey Graham responded to The Donald in a video made by a conservative think tank called How to Destroy Your Cell Phone with Lindsey Graham. In the video, Graham destroys a cell phone in a number of ways, such as a cleaver, a blender, a golf club, a fire, a wooden sword, a cinder block, off the side of a building, and even a toaster oven. I find the video personally amusing and cleverly done, given what Donald Trump has done to him. As I discussed before, Donald Trump, in a rally in South Carolina, gave out the personal phone number of South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Now, of course, Senator Graham is going to take the time to respond to Donald Trump because he is way behind in the polls compared to Mr. Trump. Wanting to be in that juicy Fox News debate, he's going to do anything that he can to boost his image, and he's hoping that this video will become viral. If Senator Graham were actually ahead of Donald Trump and Donald Trump was not significant in the polls, I don't think he would respond to this at all. But that's, other than the outrage on the news programs. But given the crowded field and his polling place, he's unlikely to be in that first debate. This takes place in Ohio in about 2 weeks. Trump, on the other hand, leads the polls. His number 2 guy behind him is double digits behind, over 10%. So he's hoping that Lindsey Graham is hoping, I should say, that by making Donald Trump his nemesis, much like Rick Perry is doing, this will give him the much-needed surge of momentum. Again, I said I like this video, and at the end it was very cute, because he says, if all else fails, you can always give your number to the Donald. And then he said this is for all the veterans. Again, trying to ride that train of Donald's many mistakes. His insult to veterans. Lindsey Graham was in the military. I mean, he was a judge advocate general officer or JAG officer. Basically, he was a lawyer in the military. But still, Lindsey Graham wore the uniform. I have at least somewhat more respect for someone who put themselves out there. A JAG officer can get killed in a missile attack just as easily as an infantry grunt. So kudos to Senator Graham for a clever, brilliant video. Whether or not it'll make a difference, only time will tell. See you in the debates, Senator. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Screams from the Center. Please leave comments below on how I can improve. Please subscribe, like, and share this video with others. My blog is at screamsfromthecenter.wordpress.com. I'm on Twitter at ScreamsFTCenter and on Facebook at Screams from the Center. Thank you.